there's like hardly any pause. You're just firing, like just boom, boom, like just straight through.
Well, I'm Andy. Monthly break.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome because it gets really personal and really into your personal life. Like, how does that, like, is your family cool with that? Does people talk about your wife a lot?
Oh, they're not there. I throw them all under the bus. Oh, the whole family under the bus.
Yeah.
Throw David Spade under the bus.
Who David Spade under the bus?
My buddy. Adam Sandler.
Andy Dick.
Well, Andy Dick's easy.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. I just want to know, like, you tell something that you have. Whatever happened to the Dodge Viper?
The Dodge Viper?
Yeah.
Oh. I talk about this car that I got, and it was a Dodge Viper, but it was a salvage title vehicle, and so it wasn't, I got a good deal on it, but it was a red convertible, and I hated that because I'm not a convertible guy, and I felt like a little douchey at my first red light there, and so I parked in my garage, and I did not drive that for about 10 years, but when I got rid of that car, because resale, I think I sold it for $16,000. Yeah, just, the toy I got now, though, is my Suntown Fun. It's a 1969 Dodge Charger, and that is an awesome car. Yeah, that's a no excuses car.
So, the first thing I ever saw you in was Seinfeld. What's the story? How did you get that role? Like,
I just auditioned, and I was, at the time I was bouncing around doing guest spots and shows, and that was going pretty well. So, I had an opportunity to go in, and when I went in for Seinfeld, I didn't have to go in for casting, so I got to go straight in for producers. So that meant I was going in to read for Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, and it went well, and I got the gig, and then, because it was just there was one episode, and then I liked the characters, they brought him back. But, the next couple of years were rough, because I was on another show that very few people were watching, on another network. And so when Seinfeld was calling about availability, I could not do Seinfeld because I was contracted to another show. So there were 2 years I could have been working on Seinfeld, and I did not get to. But I'm fortunate that I got to do the 9 episodes I did, and 10 including the final.
which was your favorite one?
I don't know. I like the religious one. I like the car salesman one. That was a fun one. And of course the Devils, the Church Devils game.
Well, but that kind of hits close to home, right? Because there was some issues with your family. You being on Seinfeld?
Well, there's always been issues, in regards to what I do and how my parents would see it. I talk about this a lot, but my father was in the monastery for 3 months, so he almost became a monk. He was in Gethsemane in Tennessee. And my father's spiritual advisor in the monastery was Thomas Merton. If you don't know who he is, he's one of the most famous Catholic scholars of all time. So that's my dad's background, and as I say, my mom is worse. Yes, when I did my first episode of Seinfeld, I got a letter from a politician in Orange County I did not know, just letting me know that you can't imagine how disappointed my parents must be at my choices. And I guess he was right, because then I got a 6-page letter from my father about how disappointed he was in my choices. And that was Seinfeld. Imagine how they felt about Family Day. But it was fun. They had to actually give up on Seinfeld at a certain point, because all their friends watched it, everybody watched it, and it was just, I think, too much for them to handle. So it was one of those things that you can't beat them, join them. So then they were okay with Seinfeld, but they were never okay with Family Day.
But then, of course, there's something in there, the Emperor's New Groove. Some people have seen it.
Yeah. Now you gotta be well versed enough with it. That was a lot of fun. I'm a Disney file, so to get an opportunity to work on at Disney. I grew up in a very, very strict household. I had three younger sisters. So my parents were very sheltering. We were allowed to watch 2 shows during the week. One was Little House on the Prairie, and the other was The Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights. So I grew up on Disney, so when I got that opportunity to do The Emperor's New Groove, I was very excited. And I wanted to get it right. So Disney, they're very secretive. They only give you maybe 4 pages of the script. That's it. You got to figure out what's going on. So and since it's animated, I don't know what a Kronk is. If it's an ogre, a robot. But I could see that he was a reticent henchman. So trying to figure out what Kronk sounded like. And what I realized is that they could write 4 pages of a description of what a character sounds like, but they don't know what a character sounds like until they hear it sometimes. So that's why it pays to be creative, and try to come up with something. So, I knew that Kronk liked to cook, and he seemed kind of sweet. It's not this bad of kind of sweet. But I mean, it could have been interesting if he sounded darker. He could have been still the same kind of nice guy, but if he was like, well, it's a shame that this one worked so hard on those finish shots. That could have been an interesting way to go. There's always options, but I'm just kind of like that.
So then you went on the
I
Family
was the
Guy.
first couple of minutes.
Was
'cause I
that,
didn't
did you have to audition for that, or did they just say, hey, we love your voice?
That was just an offer too, and that was actually just a few pages, a few pages of really offensive stuff. And like, can I do this? Of course I can.
How did I
And I'm so glad that I did. It turned out to be the best gigs I've ever gotten in my life. The longest lasting one. I've been going for 25 years now.
Wow. How often do you guys record?
Well, it's pretty much year-round. There are a few months off, a couple months off, but the team's always writing and putting together the next season. But it's the most comfortable and easiest way you can get because we record all individually. So when you go in, you're going in for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That's it.
You don't get to record at home, like they make you go in?
No, during COVID, we did a little bit of recording at home, but they like to keep us all in the studio to keep it, just to keep it all, what's that word? I'm old now.
Is Robin turn it on?
Wherever the third actors, you know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
Sometimes
Sorry.
mics and recordings would sound different in different environments.
Sure.
Yeah.
So of all the things you've done, what's your favorite thing that you ever got to do?
That question always gets me. There's just so many, there's different things for different reasons. The Tick was really fun because he was so yeah, because it was just so, whimsical and, so weird. I love doing a series of unfortunate events, that material was just wonderful and, the way that was all crafted. But to get to work on that show with the great Barry Sonnenfeld was a great experience. That whole cast was great, and all the guest stars that we had coming, they had great guest stars coming, like Catherine O'Hara. So that was really special. And there are other projects that people might not have seen that I've done. I did a movie called The Dish with Sam Neill in Australia about the Apollo 11 mission. And it's still one of Australia's biggest films ever, and it's a really interesting story. It's very charming, it's very funny. If you ever get a chance to see The Dish, that's a good movie. Especially if you're interested in the Apollo program.
So when you were the Tick, what was it like to have to put that Tick outfit on every day?
I could show up early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I remember this lovely Indian woman named Naz. And it was her job to slather 2 tubes of KY jelly on me. To slide this suit on. So it's all kind of icky, cold, and yucky in the morning. And then throughout the day, I would just, fill that thing with sweat. Yeah. Thanks. Then I'd be careful, how much I drank and everything, because, if you had to go pee, you're you had to take it off, so. You had to stay hydrated, but not too hydrated. So it was a science.
So
not comfortable.
So you do voice acting, you do acting, you do stand-up. Which one is your favorite to do?
Well, I love, with stand-up, the work is the travel, but it's really, really fun being on stage. And so I've been really enjoying that as of late because it's wholly your own, it's entirely your own creation. But I love, always love acting, and that's what I started off doing. I never went into the biz, to be a comic actor, just things turned out that's the way it was because nobody took me seriously, I guess. And so I was able to lean hard into the more absurd characters, but that's that, Now, fortunately, because I'll look down my IMDb, And I'll be like, well, that was a cool project. That one sucked. That was cool. That one sucked. That one sucked. That one sucked. That was cool. And then you realize that, you know, when you're an actor, you have to support a family of 6. For years, decades, you take any and every job that comes your way. You have to support that family. Now, fortunately, I don't have to do it anymore. So when it comes to acting, I will just do stuff that I find, you know, appealing and is interesting. You know? So I did a little film called The Duel, which is on Amazon Prime right now. You get a chance to see that. That was a nice project. And I got to work with J.J. Abrams on his new series, Duster, which is coming out in May on HBO Max. So, yeah, I do suffer a horrible death, so I don't think I'll be coming back. But I will work, you know, something interesting comes along, I'll work. But right now, I've been really focusing on stand-up and touring, so I've been traveling a lot. I've traveled more this year already than I ever have doing that. But it's good.
And then you had the flu, like you said you had the flu.
Yeah, so not right now, we're all cool. But yeah, about a month ago in Florida, I was touring. I had just done 5 shows in St. Petersburg, I went to Naples, did a few shows there, got on stage, St. Patty's Day, felt horrible. Went to emergency care the next morning, tested positive for the flu. So then I called, you know, the bookers that do it down there, and those clubs, they don't ever want to let you go because their whole night's gone, so that's selling food and drinks and everything. And I go, bad luck, guys, I just tested positive for the flu. So, and their response was, oh, that sucks that you feel bad. What we usually do is just mask up the comic, and then when they walk on stage, they just take it off. And I go, I don't have the cold. I have the flu. I will not be coming in. So I got out of the show that night, but then I had to go from Naples to Miami, and I couldn't get out of every show. So then I had to do Miami, 70 minutes on stage with the flu. I always look at stuff like that as a test. I'm like, all right, if I can do this, I can do anything. So yeah, I did that, and then West Palm Beach, still on the flu. Not fun. And I got the vaccine this year, not fair. No. But you know, I'm from California, so I've had probably 37, 38 vaccines this year.
Is there a role that you turned down that you wish you hadn't?
No, well, as I just said, Chris, I've sort of taken every piece of garbage that's come my way. There are roles that I was up for that I wish I got. Like, I remember years ago reading for Cougar in Top Gun. That would have been great. Would have been great to do that part of Top Gun. But yeah, there are things here and there that, you know, a lot of times it's like, you never know what's going to happen. Like something doesn't work out and something is. Because I was up for a show and I did not have good chemistry with the one actor. I'm not going to mention him. And I didn't, and I don't know if I'm manager here. I do have a show though. I do my show. All right, so I didn't do it, and it was like 3 days later, that's when I bumped into Jerry Seinfeld, who said, can you come on the show for the last season? And if I had done the other show, I wouldn't have been able to do most of my episodes on Seinfeld, which were during the ninth season. Yeah.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
So if there was something, you know, you do a lot of different things, is there some sort of media you would like to do that you haven't done?
Media?
Yeah, well, you know, like something else? Art form?
Yeah, I always enjoyed doing, you know, theater, but I guess for art form, I'm not much of a painter. I can write comedy because I, you know, have a sort of demented, neurotic brain. Yeah, I feel like, you know, people ask me, why don't you direct? Or say, oh, I don't. And I don't, you know, it's just a lot of work. And I just feel like there are things still in, you know, in acting that I still love to explore too, and I'm fine with that. And the voiceover and stand-up. So.
What about music?
Yeah, I've dabbled. I never quit my day job, but yeah, I started taking singing lessons at the tender age of 48. And, like 49, I had a garage band with some buddies, and it was a Pearl Jam cover band. And we were called the Bearded Pearl Flames. That was our name. And that's right, it's Pearl Jam's right there. Yeah, there's my guy. Yeah, so we've been there for a while. I did record a song with a band called Burn the Ballroom, and they're fans of shody called the Venture Brothers. And so these guys would get on stage, yeah, and they would wear Venture Brothers t-shirts, and they go, "You want to record a song with us?" I go, "Sure." So we recorded a song called Goddess of the Rain, which is still like their 4th most downloaded song. So if you get a chance, check out Goddess of the Rain, Burn the Ballroom, because it's not bad. It's not great. It's not terrible.
So you started well before like the internet and all the memes. But how does it feel to like be kind of a meme, like like the whole you were raw dogging the flight before that was a thing, like as Putty.
Yeah. Well, I never did social media, so when I started doing comedy, I used to look at me for that. They go, "You have to do social media." So I employed some help in the social media department. There are actually people in the biz that can help you with your social media. So like, what are you gonna post? I go, "I don't know. Everybody keeps telling me about this raw dogging thing that Putty invented it. So maybe we could put something out." So we did, and then like within that week, there was articles in People and Entertainment Weekly, and Daily Mail, and Fox, and everywhere. So that was kind of fun. But this is all stuff that was just passing me up before, but so now I'm just kind of integrating it into the social media, and they also put up all my dates where I'm going to do shows and stuff like that, so they can sort of take care of all that stuff. I still interact on social media, so I'll still comment and I'll still interact, but you'll notice that my social media stuff now it's integrated with things and words and captions, and it's cut in with other stuff. It's all stuff I don't know how to do, so they put that stuff together.
I'm gonna ask people if they want to ask questions. We're gonna have a lineup over here. But one more thing, what's one role you would love to play?
I should always research these things before I go into that. I don't know. I love curious, interesting, You want to do something great, like say Billy Bob Thornton in a sling blade. You have to create something and write it, Nobody else is going to do it for you. I guess I've always been too lazy to do that. Sling Blade is one of my favorite little films of all time. You talk about something that makes you laugh, makes you cry. It's just genius. A character that he created in the mirror, in his dressing room, working with John Ritter on a show, CBS Radford back when I was working there on Dave's World. Inspiration is oftentimes, you have a solid inspiration, create something, like that. But, interesting roles like that.
I forgot about it. Do you have any interesting stories about Harry Henderson?
No, I enjoyed working with them and that whole gang. I don't know if any of y'all remember he was on Night Court.
Oh yeah,
Night Court. He used to be on Cheers back in the day. But
did he do magic tricks around the set?
He did. No.
Wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
We just had Brent Spiner on, and he was on Night Court.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was like the hillbilly guy that bad things always happen to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then he's on the new Night Court as the same character.
Oh, okay. So Brent covered with Larry.
Oh wow.
Good.
You said that you were a Disney file, and you also appear on like the Soaring, the ride. I was wondering because you did the voice of Buzz Lightyear for Star Trek, and the only way to watch it is the only thing that's available right now is the movie, but that was 10 hours. It came in, I think, the second episode, third episode.
Yeah.
And it's not available on Disney Plus.
I know. I don't know why it's not. It's interesting though, because what's really funny is I had heard, I had recorded all the episodes of Buzz Lightyear Star Trek. So then Tim Allen had to go into the studio for 9 hours and loop the whole first 3 episodes that I did. And like I said, we didn't know each other at the time. So he spent 9 hours cursing my name because my Buzz Lightyear is different than his, and so I had different timing. And he's having to now match my timing. And he was so irritated. And then we end up working on a film together called Big Trouble in Florida, which is this great film. It's really fun, great cast, Rene Russo, Stanley Tucci. We had, just a massive cast. But it was about a comedy with a bomb on an airplane, so we never, we were set to come out September 20th in 2001. So I didn't. But anyways, so that's the first time I worked with Tim. So on that set, you know, we had some fun. I gave him a little bit of a hard time. I had to let him know that I was the real Buzz Lightyear. And he goes, how so? And I go, well, you were a toy in the movie, right? He goes, yeah. And I go, there you go. I was a toy. So we had some fun. And then we did a movie called Joe Somebody together in Minnesota, where I smack him to the ground in front of his 10-year-old daughter. It's a really ugly scene. And at that point I looked at Tim as he was laying there on the asphalt in Minnesota. I said, that must be your worst nightmare. So I voiced your character. Now I'm following you from set to set, smacking you around. I go, it wasn't supposed to be this way, Tim. But we became friends, and he went back to LA. He produced the pilot, and then he hired me to do the show. So Tim and I have been friends. This is just kind of funny. We were playing golf one time at Lakeside, and we were having lunch. And I eat really fast, so I eat my lunch before he even started his. And I looked at him and I go, Tim, I'm sorry. I go, I eat fast. I eat like, you know, I either had older brothers or I was in prison and I had neither. And without missing a beat, Tim goes, I had both. Any of you recall? Oh, I hope that answers your question. I don't know why it's not a Disney Plus. You can all write in. Hello.
Hello. So I'm gonna use an example before I start this question. So like Ryan Reynolds regrets the Green Lantern, is there anything in your work that you regretted doing?
Okay, it's interesting, you know, like those films I talked about doing with Oliver Reed or The Kid in Africa years ago are horrible, and I don't want anybody to ever see them, and I am the worst thing in them. Well, they were, you know, canon films, exploitation. The great Oliver Reed was, you know, relegated to doing scrappy movies because they couldn't ensure major production with him because he was too volatile, but he's still really good at it because he's Oliver Reed. I don't want anybody to see him, but it was an amazing experience. It was an amazing experience in my life to go to South Africa and spend that time down there working. But I don't want anybody to see it. So I try to, you know, I look at things differently, you know. Yeah, there have been times I've done things, you know, for favors, you know. I mean, I spent a month in Sanderson, Texas. Does anybody know Sanderson? Well, even in Texas, people don't understand. It's this tiny little, there's nothing there. And when we went there, I was stuck there, not making a dime because it's a favor, you know. I mean, I literally got a pickaxe to go pick rocks, and I had nothing else to do there. This is before cell phones. They didn't have a grocery store there. We had to go to the Town and Country gas station to get food. You're like eating beef sticks. In my room, and this was in December, so it was really, really cold. Down near the Rio Grande there, I guess. And it was cold. And my room had like fuzz on the floor, it wasn't even real carpet. There was a boot nailed to the wall, and that was the art. There was a little ceramic heater in my room that kept it warm, heated up to about 49 degrees if I kept it on 24 hours a day. And we were stuck there. And when we went there, we got a letter, and they go, welcome to Sanderson, Texas. If there's anything we can do to make your stay more pleasant, let us know. And please don't bring any minors back to your motel rooms. It was like the most insulting thing I've ever seen. I wanted to go to whoever it was and go, are you talking about the guys with the lights in their head? It was really, listen, we have backwards places in California, and you have one here in Texas. It's called Sanderson.
Mr. Warburton, I just want to first say thanks for the body of work. It's absolutely awesome. And I know in previous interviews, you said that you aged out of the tick role.
Yeah.
Would there ever be a perfect set of circumstances, like if everything lined up just right? Would you ever go back to it? Because for so many of us, you are the tick.
I feel like, you know, I would. Now, when we did it, you know, at Amazon, I was the one who had taken it out. And, you know, because my management team I was with at the time, they go, "You're not doing anything. Is there anything you'd like to do?" And I go, "We never got a fair shot with the tech. I'd love to do it again." So I pushed that boulder uphill for about a year, and then Amazon decided to do it. But they were going to do it entirely different without Batman Well or Captain Liberty or any of that. And so they wanted to cast from the ground up, which I totally understood. You know, if they're going to recreate the tech, they want to do it all anew. So it was a bummer because I wanted to do it again. I felt like at the time I was about 50, and I feel like, you know, Batman needs to be, you know, younger. Superman certainly needs to be younger, but you know, the tech doesn't need to be a kid. And you have that cowling on with makeup and everything, and I thought I could still pass as, you know, the tick, but at this point, I'm 60 years old now, I'm a grandfather, and I'm so now I'm
He's trying to spare.
Yeah. Miles Patrick over at this being a grandfather. Yeah, I would do it again if they wanted to, but you know, I don't know.
Afternoon, sir. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to tell you that I was Sasquatch with Jack Link's first season, and I can relate to the sweatiness and the uniformness of the tick. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yes, well, I mean, you know, Sasquatch garb would have to have been miserable, I would
It was
imagine.
comparable.
Yeah, yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, if you may please, sir, as Joe, would you say tongue twister for me?
I'm gonna try.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers, nice and slow.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers. And that's what you get from someone who failed out of junior college.
Hello there.
Hello.
First off, I want to say thanks for everything. Thanks for my childhood, basically. You were the majority of my cartoons.
Hi.
As someone who has admired voice acting for so long, do you have any advice for like anybody who wants to get started in it?
Yes, absolutely. So, and I touched on this a little bit with Kronk, and you know, because when you really want something, you work extra hard at it, and it sort of was a light bulb moment for me, because I always, you know, in acting or voiceover, you know, a lot of times you think about what's the right way to do something, and then all of a sudden I realized there isn't a right way, but there is a creative way. So like with that Kronk, they didn't know what Kronk sounded like, so you have to do something, invent something, and show them what a character sounds like. It doesn't mean that you don't take direction or this or that, but if you could walk in a room and do something that they're like, oh, I like that for that character, that's probably the best thing you could do. So I just, you know, it seems, you know, in entertainment or, you know, being an actor, you know, obvious, but sometimes it's, you know, it might be elusive, but what you really want to do is do something inventive and creative and something unique and different. You know, and I try to do that because I'm not a chameleon when it comes to voiceover, you know, I mean, you know, there's not a big difference between, say, Joe and Kronk. Joe's Kronk's a little bit sweeter like that. Joe's just a little bit more officious because he's a cop, see? So, you know, you can tell the same guy does both voices, but yet they're kind of different. And then there's voiceover artists that change their voice all the time. You don't know what they're doing, you know, because they do so many different voices. So I admire those guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Hey.
Me and my siblings, we just finished a series of unfortunate events. We watched like every episode together, and it took us forever. But we really like words, and we kind of liked the whole like phrase that here means bit throughout the whole show. But I was just kind of wondering like what you thought of that role as a whole, or you know, just like your experience with it.
Well, please watch something more pleasant.
I read all the books in like first grade, so yeah.
That was so much fun because the writing, I love the way Lemony was written, I loved all the irony, I loved how dry it was. It was amazing working with Barry Sonnenfeld, like I said, and of course, you know, Bo Welch did all the sets, he did all the sets in the Men in Black films. Daniel Handler is just a genius writer. I gotta show you something really quickly here. So I thought that the tattoo train passed me by because I never got one and I was never going to get one. But when I did a series of unfortunate events, I had to get the tattoo. The funny story was that, you know, because I'm reading is like, you know, season 2, and Lemony goes, there was a time in my life when I had a woman that I loved, a home, and a reliable typewriter. All those things are gone now, and all I have left to remind myself of that is this tattoo. It's such a revelation. I'm like, oh, I gotta get that tattoo. So Neil Patrick Harris gets the tattoo. He was playing Olaf, and I got the tattoo. But his tattoo artist took some liberties, artistic liberties. And so he shows up with the tattoo, shows it to Barry Sonnenfeld and Rose, the producer, and they go, well, that's great, you have to put makeup over it and do the right one. And he goes, I got the tattoo. And they go, it's wrong. So I made sure I got the right one. So in the show, the only person who's actually got the right tattoo is me. I had to, you know, when you're gonna get one tattoo, I just said, if I'm gonna get one tattoo in my life, I want Michelangelo to do it, see? So, you know, you want somebody. So I did some research and I found this guy, Robert Mahoney, who they consider to be the godfather of single needle pen and ink. Apparently he did Tupac's tattoo. It's amazing, and he's an older guy. And so he has his own people do his tattoos now at the Shamrock Social Club or on Sunset, but he agreed to do my tattoo. So he's doing the tattoo, and I'm just watching him, and he's doing it, and he finally decides to say something, and he goes, I just love you in those national car rental commercials. Like, that's what got me in? All right, whatever. I've done other things.
This is another serious and unfortunate event question, but it's more like, you've played so many goofball characters. Prom's is a goofball. I've played Skylanders as a kid. You played in that. He's a goofball. Like, so many of the characters you play are goofball. But Lemony Snicket is very solemn, very serious.
Yes.
He's very to the point. How was it to play such a different character? You started in comedy, and then Lemony Snicket is not a comical character. Even though
Well,
the
it's
show is.
easy. I'm an actor, you know, see, they don't in this industry. They just put you in a box and they think you do something. Now, if it was up to Netflix, I wouldn't have been on their top 200 list to play Lemony, because they just don't see me that way. Fortunately, like Daniel Handler was a fan of a film I did called The Woman Chaser, which it's a really interesting little film. He actually came to see a screening of it years before we did that in San Francisco, where the director and I did a Q&A afterwards. And then Barry knows me from my work too. So both Barry and Daniel Handler were like, Warburton needs to play Lemony. And so fortunately I had them in my corner because, like I said, if it was up the higher ups, I wouldn't have even been in the running. But fortunately, yeah, there, you know, directors like Barry that get me and know that I can do stuff like that. But normally they just don't, you know. In a business where it's supposed to be creative, they're not so creative in casting so often. They're just not. You know, and I always found it interesting when you see somebody make a turn, like, let's go back to Sling Blade. There are people talking about how amazing John Ritter was in that. I love John. I got to work with him on 8 Simple Rules. But they're just so impressed, you know, that he wasn't tripping over couches like he did in Three's Company. And it's like, well, he's an actor. He could do that, you know? Whereas in Australia doing the film, The Dish with Sam Neill, I got to hang out with people like Jeffrey Rush, you know, and I was at Sam's and I got to, you know, he had a little barbecue one night. And so the first 2 people that showed up were Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. I spent 2 hours playing ping pong with Tom Cruise, you know, and I was hanging out with all these like major stars, and I was thinking to myself, only in Australia, you know, in Los Angeles, I'm not allowed to hang out with them. Yeah, you know, but here I was. You got it.
Hello.
Hello.
Regarding your stand-up career, is there any particular comic that you really take inspiration from, either classic like George Carlin or more recently Bill Burr?
Well, for me, it's Chappelle. Because I do anecdotal stuff and I tell a lot of stories. I try to mix it up. I'll get on stage for 70 minutes. I don't even talk about Seinfeld or anything like that. It's all relatable. I've been married for 34 years, 4 kids, 7 dogs, and a mean wife. It's stuff that everybody can relate with, and that's what stand-up's got to be. It's not like a night with Patrick Warburton where I'm just talking about projects and this and that. There are a couple of industry stories. There's a couple of them that I tell that are fitting for it. But other than that, I keep it try to keep it very varied. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Another series of French events question. Did you do any? Did you read the books before doing the role, or did you learn about the story of this character as you got the script?
I did not, you know, it was all scripts for me, yeah, so I never read those books, and and we tried to read the books to our kids. I remember my son Talon, he was just like, this is sad. All right, put this one down. Thanks.
Hi.
Hello.
I was wondering, how was your experience filming your small part in Scream 3?
Oh, that was fun. I've only done, gosh, I'm trying to think if I've done another horror film like that. I know that it was Hooper, right, who directed that, yeah, so it's cool to get to work with Toby, yeah. I got to work with Parker Posey, so that was fun. Anybody see The White Lotus? Yeah. With Parker fun in that, oh my gosh. Yeah, I enjoyed that, just a few days on it, but it was fun to be a part of the Scream movie, yeah, part of that franchise. I'm trying to think of another horror film, but I can't remember what it is. Must not be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Hey.
So you mentioned Kronk being like the kind of like the cheerful, like not cheerful, like the more pleasant bodyguard type of relation. If you could just play him a little darker, would you say that's your Bronx sense for Venture Brothers?
Yeah, Brock's a little bit, that would be a little more Brockish, yes.
That's exactly what came to mind when you mentioned it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and so the Venture Brothers came out of the Tick because Chris McCulloch, who was, was like Ben Edlund's right-hand man back in the day, that worked on the Tick and wrote on the Tick, created the Venture Brothers and asked me if I'd do it. And that was right when the Tick was going down in flames. And I remember going, sure, I guess. It's kind of like a consolation prize. But, who would have known that it would have turned out to what it did, because we ran for quite a while with that. It's like every 2 years, but they made a really kind of cool series, yeah.
One of my favorite roles.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I loved you in Ken from the Bee Movie. So my question is, what was it like to get like that script about like a talking bee and like different stuff like that?
Oh, that was a blast. It was obviously Jerry Seinfeld who invited me to come play on that one, and I worked more with Jerry Seinfeld on the Bee Movie than I did in Seinfeld. He didn't direct Seinfeld. I wasn't in a lot of scenes with them. But he did direct the Bee Movie, so I was always in the studio with him and working on that. But yeah, that was really fun to play before Ken gals getting stolen by a bee. I think my favorite scene in that was when I was trying to smash him with Italian Vogue. He goes, that's a big magazine. I go, it's Italian Vogue, mostly ads. Thank you.
When you were on Family Guy, what was your favorite Peter roast?
Favorite Peter roast? Like something I said to Peter?
Or when Peter roasted you or something?
Well, let me see here. Gosh, do you have anything in mind? I'm having a hard time thinking. We do them every week and then kind of forget about them. I love it when they give Joe bigger, episodes. A lot of times he's just, barely there, but it's always a lot of fun. There was one really, really awkward, gross episode where Meg had a crush on Joe. So even though we record individually, they wanted me and Mila to record together, so I got to record Mila, which was really fun. And she's great. I worked with her on the TED film too. But that was a fun one. But I think it's usually Peter's being mean to Joe. Joe's, just kind of a nicer guy. Not a great cop, but I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't really have a question, but I am the one person that kind of knows about Sanderson. I have a good friend of mine that worked at that gas station that you've been to and all
Yeah.
And trust me, you told me the horror stories of that place. I just thought it was really funny that you brought it up and everything. He's all like, which hotel was that? Because I can see that happening.
There's no hotel there.
Or hotel there.
Yeah, it was a motel and barely. Well, this is the thing, Sanderson was supposed to be a train stop, and then they never made it a train stop. So I guess maybe the train would stop in Alpine or Martha.
Yeah.
Nothing for poor Sanderson. And there wasn't a grocery store there. There's nothing.
You should use the tourist ads for that.
I think I've already lost that job.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up really quick.
Thank you. One more.
So you said you grew up watching a lot of Disney movies as a kid. Is there any Disney role that you really wanted to play that you never got the chance to?
Well, I loved all the old Disney movies. I mean, I remember, one of my first favorite animated Disney films was The Sword and the Stone, narrated by the great Sebastian Cabot. Like Disney films. Oh, so Kurt Russell became a good friend of mine because I did 7 years working on a show called Rules of Engagement with his son Oliver Hudson. So I got to know Kurt very well. And I kind of fanboy a little bit over Kurt because he was in all those old Disney movies that I used to watch, like I don't know, The World's Greatest Athlete or That Darn Cat or those things.
He was a computer.
Yeah. Oh, this is a great, terrible story that Kurt told me. So, Kurt was Walt's boy. Walt Disney loved Kurt. So Walt gave him some very, very special cells, which Kurt took and put in his mother's garage. And then years later, the Disney archivist went to Kurt and said, we'd love to come to your home and archive those cells. Don't worry, we're not going to take them away from you. And Kurt goes, come on over. So he goes into the garage where they've been for 30 or 40 years, line an area of the garage where the sun is coming through a little bit of a window, and slowly, slowly cooking them into one blob of plastic. So they're worthless. Now this is years ago too, keep in mind, probably 20 years ago. Kurt goes, how much would those have been worth? They go about $4 million. In the art market today, maybe 20. And now he just has to laugh about it because, ooh, but what a terrible, horrible, yeah. Anyways, I didn't answer your question there. Anything and everything Disney, if they ever invite me to do something. I just heard recently that at Epcot Center, I am no longer on Soarin'. Yeah, some people told me, they go, yeah, we saw the Soarin'. This is like a couple weeks ago. And I go, who's that guy? I go, it wasn't me. Well, I think I was on for 24 years, so, yeah. I get it. Yeah, change that. I always had fun with my kids at Disneyland, though, because I love to humiliate them and embarrass them. So, like, we'd be in line for Soarin', and nobody would recognize me because I had a hat on, glasses, or whatever. And then when I would come on the screen, I would tell everybody in line to be quiet. I go, be quiet, I love this guy. Another thing I like to do at Disneyland to embarrass them is on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I've done this for years. I recommend you all try it sometime. So when you're in the Pirates and you're going by that restaurant and everything's quiet, that's when you pipe up in a really loud pirate voice and you go, I recommend the field. My kids always know it's coming. And one time I did that, and one of the waiters in the restaurant shushed me. Like, come on, fella, it's Disneyland. Lighten up. One more question.
All right. My question to you is, since you pretty much took all those jobs, was there any particular place that you absolutely loved and wish you could move to?
Well, all right, this made me think of the other horror movie. So I did a movie called Better Watch Out, which is a Christmas horror movie, which is actually a genre. And we're rated like the second highest Christmas horror movie, if that's something. It's no Academy Award. But I shot that in Sydney, and I got to stay on Bondi Beach for 2 weeks during summer, and I thought, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. And I'd already worked in Vancouver, but I'd never worked there for a long extended period of time. I went to Vancouver to do a series of unfortunate events immediately after that, and spring, and decided that Vancouver in spring and summer is my favorite city in the world. It's just so beautiful, surrounded by all its natural beauties, snow-capped, sound of music, peak mountains in the spring, 70 degrees every day, and everybody's riding around Stanley Park and hanging out at the beach there, and the food is great, the clubs are great, people are great. It's just the perfect mix of just nature and beauty in a city, and I love Vancouver. Really very expensive to live there.
Thank you very much.
Glad you're taking notes.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you to Patrick Warburton, guys.
Thank you all so much.
Two shows tonight. It's a comic strip?
Yeah.
Comic strip.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody have fun at the con. Come on by and say hi. All right.